Hi, I'm Ruby, and my story? Well, let's just say I was the afterthought. I came into this world 12 years after my eldest sister, Sarah, and 10 years after Emma. By the time I could form my first memories, they were already deep in their teenage years. And let me tell you, they were more interested in boys and makeup than in playing with their baby sister. Our house in suburban Minnesota was a symphony of praise, but not for me. Oh no! Every time Sarah brought home an A, my parents would beam at the dinner table. And when Emma made the cheerleading squad, my parents would practically shout it from the rooftops. Meanwhile, I'd sit there, pushing peas around my plate, feeling like the invisible girl in the corner. The shadow in my own home. I still remember the day Sarah brought her first boyfriend home. She was 16. I was just 4. I peeked through the banister rails as this tall guy with spiky hair nervously shook hands with our dad. And Emma wasn't far behind, dating by 15. They were beautiful, confident, everything I wasn't. It was like I was invisible. "Ruby, finish your homework," Mom would say, barely looking up from helping Sarah pick out prom dresses or discuss college applications with Emma. I learned early on to fend for myself, to find comfort in my own space, to not need attention, because it was always on them. Then there was the morning when I was 7. "Ruby, did you hear?" Mom bursts into the kitchen. Sarah got accepted to Northwestern. And the next thing I knew, we were celebrating with pancakes. Meanwhile, I sat there, the invisible one, as the joy and excitement swirled around me. 2 years later, Emma left for college, and the house felt like a ghost town. Too empty and yet somehow still filled with their presence. Their rooms became shrines to their lives, trophies, photos, memories frozen in time. And I carved out my own little world, tried to avoid being drowned in their legacy, and I did my best to ignore the fact that every conversation somehow circled back to Sarah and Emma. But then, at 15, everything changed. Sarah, now married and living across town, gave birth to her first child. A boy named Tyler. And that day, I still remember walking in to see everyone crying, my parents practically floating with joy at becoming grandparents. "You'll be such a wonderful aunt," Mom said, squeezing my shoulder. And I remember thinking, this is where it all shifts. I just didn't know how much it would shift. At first, I was excited. Tyler was adorable. I loved making him giggle, making silly faces, all of it. But then, the requests started. "Ruby, could you watch Tyler for a couple hours?" "I need to go shopping," Sarah would ask, already handing him to me before I even had a chance to respond. "Thanks, sis. You're the best." And just like that, it became the norm. Every weekend, Sarah would drop off Tyler and disappear. Shopping, lunch with friends, spa days, whatever it was always under the guise of needing a break from motherhood. And me? I'd sit there, frustrated, realizing my weekends were no longer my own. "Mom, this isn't fair," I complained one day, after Sarah had been gone for 5 hours. I had plans to meet Jenny at the mall. "Family helps family," she said, barely looking up from her magazine. "Ruby, your sister needs this time. You'll understand when you're a mother." And then it happened again. Emma, pregnant at 16. "It's a girl," she squealed at family dinner, and the joy filled the room again. The same cycle repeated itself, this time with Tyler and baby Sophie. And me? I was caught in the middle of it all, juggling a 3-year-old and a crying baby. Homework? Forget about it. If they were napping, maybe I'd get some peace. But of course, that rarely happened. One Saturday, I asked Dad if I could go to the movies with Jason. I was bouncing Sophie on my hip, watching Tyler color on the coffee table. Well, his coffee table, not the one I used as a kid. "You should have thought about that before agreeing to watch the kids," he said. But I never agreed. Nobody ever asked me. And that frustration? It made Sophie cry. "Lower your voice, Ruby. You're upsetting the baby," Mom scolded, as if I were the problem. So I did what I had to do. I buried myself in studying, spending hours in the school library, researching colleges far away from here. Every A on my report card felt like a step closer to freedom. When my acceptance letter from Berkeley arrived, complete with a partial scholarship, I felt like I could finally breathe. But of course, my family had other plans. "The community college here has a great business program," Sarah suggested during what they called a family meeting. It felt more like an intervention. "You could live at home, save money, and help with the kids," Emma added. I looked around at their faces, expecting, demanding. But then, Grandma Rose spoke. "I think Berkeley is perfect for Ruby." Her words sliced through the tension like a knife. "That program is exactly what she needs." And for the first time in years, I felt like someone was finally standing up for me. The family meeting ended with disappointed glares, but I didn't care. I knew this was my future. And for once, it didn't involve being everyone's unpaid babysitter. College life was everything I dreamed of. My dorm room became my sanctuary, my classmates' real friends. My weekends were finally mine, free from crying babies and sticky toddlers. I could finally breathe. But you can never really escape family obligations, can you? Holidays roll around, and the expectations pile up. Thanksgiving and Christmas? Non-negotiable. "Everyone's asking about you, Ruby," Mom would call, thick with expectation. The kids miss their aunt. The first Christmas after I started college, I walked into absolute chaos. Sarah now had 2 boys, Tyler and his baby brother Luke. Emma added a boy named Max to her brood. And before I knew it, I was corralling 8 kids upstairs. My old bedroom? A war zone. Toys everywhere. Juice spills on my childhood bedspread. Crayon marks mysteriously appearing on the walls. Hours passed, and I was still babysitting. My stomach growled, but no one seemed to notice. Finally, when Mom brought me some kid-friendly snacks, after hours of managing the chaos, she barely looked me in the eye. When I finally managed to sneak downstairs, I found the dining room empty. The adults had eaten. The plates picked over. And then Emma, already putting on her coat. "Max was an angel for you, right?" Sarah followed suit, chatting about New Year's plans. "No thank you." No one asked if I'd eaten. They filed out, leaving me standing alone in the wreckage of a Christmas dinner I never got to enjoy. "Ruby, be a dear and help me with these dishes," Mom called from the kitchen, as if I hadn't just spent the entire day doing everyone a massive favor. And that was when it hit me. The message from Mom that came during finals week. The usual pre-holiday update. But this one made my blood run cold. "Sarah and Emma are coming with the kids," it said. Cheerfully. Plus Janet and her twins, Rachel's girls, Mike's kids, and exciting news. Sarah's sister-in-law Lisa is joining us with her 3. And I thought, here we go again. It was supposed to be a wonderful Christmas, filled with the laughter of little ones, and yet, something felt off. 12 kids, 12! I did the math in my head again and again, each time hoping I had missed something. I sat there, my eyes glued to my phone in the quiet library, waiting for the screen to light up once more. When it did, I blinked, my heart skipped a beat. The message hadn't changed, but something inside of me had. 2 years of college had finally given me perspective, real perspective. I'd watch my roommate, Kate, head home for the holidays and return with stories of actual family time, board games, movie nights, the cozy comfort of a proper Christmas dinner. Meanwhile, I'd spent every holiday of my adult life as an unpaid nanny, trapped in the role of family helper. I didn't even bother replying to my mom's message. Instead, I packed my bag for Christmas break, feeling an unfamiliar calm wash over me. This time, I wasn't dreading the holidays. No, this time, I was going home with a plan. The days leading up to Christmas were deceptively normal. I helped Mom in the kitchen, inhaling the familiar scent of pot roast, honey-glazed ham, and her legendary apple pie. I decorated the tree, carefully hanging the ornaments I'd made in elementary school alongside the elegant glass balls she reserved for the front of the tree. Christmas morning arrived in a blur of activity. Cars piled into the driveway one after another, each one bringing more chaos than the last. Sarah arrived first, her 2 little ones in tow, 5 and 3, and not far behind, Emma showed up with Sophie and Max. Then, Lisa, Sarah's sister-in-law, arrived with her 3 kids, all under 7. The relatives just kept coming. Each new family member added more noise, more excitement, more energy to the scene. I found myself tucked away in the corner of the living room, watching it all unfold, the noise level rising steadily with each new arrival. And then Sarah, her youngest balanced on her hip, the older one pulling at her sleeve, approached me. "Ruby," she called in that familiar tone, the one that always meant she was about to pass off her parental duties. "The boys are so excited to see you, they can't wait to play with their favorite aunt." Before I even realized it, my voice found its strength. No, the word was steady, clear, despite the fluttering in my chest. "I'm not watching the kids today. I'm here to enjoy Christmas like everyone else." The room didn't fall silent, not with so many kids running around. But I felt the ripple of shock move through the adults like a wave. Sarah's mouth dropped open. Mom froze in the doorway, plate of cookies in hand. Dad looked up from his newspaper, raising an eyebrow. "But who's going to watch all the kids?" Emma's voice, laced with panic, cut through the moment. I turned toward the stairs, glancing back just long enough to see Mom's helpless shrug and the confused looks on everyone's faces. For a moment, I almost laughed. They looked like someone had just told them Christmas was canceled. My feet carried me up the stairs, past the family photos marking my sister's many achievements, into my childhood bedroom. The soft click of the door closing behind me felt final, like the punctuation at the end of a long sentence. I flopped onto my bed, the same twin bed I'd had since middle school, and let out a long breath. Downstairs, I could hear the muffled sounds of chaos, voices rising and falling, kids crying, something clattering to the floor. Can you believe her? So selfish. The fragments of conversation floated up, and I smiled to myself. Let them talk. Let them finally face the reality of watching their own kids. My phone buzzed. Kate's message popped up. "Did you do it? Did you finally stand up to them?" "Operation Freedom is in progress," I type back. "Currently hiding in my room while they figure out how to parent their own kids." A knock at the door interrupted my text. "Ruby, the children are asking for you." It was Mom, her voice tinged with something between annoyance and desperation. "I'm busy, Mom," I called, not moving from my spot. Her sigh was audible through the door before her footsteps retreated. I returned to my phone, joining my college friends group chat. They were providing their own running commentary on family Christmas dramas. Jessica's uncle was drunk again. Mike's grandma was asking when he'd find a nice girl. Kate's brother had brought home a surprise girlfriend. For 2 hours, I hid in peaceful rebellion, my phone buzzing constantly with messages of support from friends who knew my complaints all too well. Downstairs, the chaos eventually settled into a new rhythm, one that didn't include me. When I finally descended for dinner, the reaction was almost comical. Aunt Janet dropped her fork. Cousin Rachel's mouth hung open mid-sentence. Emma was nowhere to be found. I scanned the room, noting her absence. Through the living room doorway, I saw her trying to organize a game with the kids, her usually perfect hair coming loose, a mysterious stain marring her festive sweater. I took my seat at the adult table, my first time doing so in recent memory. The spread before me was perfection. Everything still hot, fresh, and ready to be enjoyed. No lukewarm leftovers, no half-eaten children's portions. As I filled my plate with Mom's honey-glazed ham, Aunt Janet's sweet potato casserole, and Cousin Rachel's famous green bean dish, I could feel the weight of disapproving stares. Then, Sarah snapped. She'd been watching me eat with the intensity of a nature documentary. "Well, looks like someone's gotten a little too big for their boots at college," she said, sarcasm dripping from her words. "Seems like they've forgotten all about sisterly duties." I took my time with my spoonful of mashed potatoes, deliberately savoring the moment. "Funny thing about sisterly duties," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I don't remember seeing free babysitter in any sisterhood manual. Maybe you could point that chapter out to me, right after the part where parents are supposed to watch their own children." The gasps around the table would have been funny if they weren't so genuine. Aunt Janet actually clutched her pearls. I hadn't realized people really did that outside of movies. Cousin Rachel suddenly found her green beans fascinating. Uncle Mike was pretending to be invisible behind his dinner roll. Mom and Dad exchanged that familiar look, the one that meant they were disappointed but didn't want to cause a scene. Dad's fork hung frozen in midair, and Mom's smile tightened around the edges. But instead of the lecture I expected, Mom cleared her throat and changed the subject, asking Uncle Mike about his new job. The conversation stumbled back to life, though everyone kept shooting me glances, expecting me to grow a second head. I just kept eating. I savored every bite of food that hadn't been touched by tiny hands or gone cold while I changed diapers. About 20 minutes into dinner, Emma appeared in the doorway, looking like she'd been through a war. Her Christmas sweater now sported juice stains, and her hair was a wild mess. "Sarah," she called, her voice tinged with desperation. Sarah shot me one last withering look before pushing back from the table. She and Emma swapped places, and Emma practically collapsed into the vacated chair, her exhaustion palpable. It was the kind of bone-deep tired that spoke volumes. The holidays had always been a blur of stress and sacrifice, but this time was different. Emma filled her plate mechanically, but her eyes never left me, giving me that unmistakable stink eye between bites. I met her gaze head-on, shrugged, and then returned to my meal. For once, I wasn't letting their tension steal my peace. After savoring 2 servings of Mom's apple pie, a luxury I'd never been able to enjoy before, I quietly excused myself from the table. No one protested. No one demanded I take a shift with the kids. No one even asked me to help clean up. Morning light filtered through the living room windows as I descended the stairs, still riding the high of my peaceful Christmas evening. But that calm evaporated the instant I saw them, Mom, Dad, Sarah, and Emma, all sitting in a formation that could only be described as an ambush. Sarah wasted no time. What kind of performance was that yesterday? Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air like a knife, making us look like bad parents in front of everyone. I sank into an armchair, surprisingly calm. Performance? You mean me wanting to enjoy Christmas like everyone else? I leaned back, letting the weight of my words settle. I'm just tired of being the unpaid, unappreciated babysitter while everyone else gets to have an actual holiday. Mom furrowed her brow in confusion. But you never complained before. I couldn't help but laugh. Never complained? I've been complaining for years, Mom. But it was just too convenient to ignore me, wasn't it? Too easy to keep exploiting the good little sister who never makes waves. The room erupted in voices, accusations, reminders of sisterly duties, and family obligations. Dad kept bringing up everything they'd done for me over the years. Mom mentioned how well they'd raised me, and Sarah alternated between guilt trips and outright attacks. I let them talk themselves out of steam before I spoke again. They're not my children, I said quietly but firmly. I didn't give birth to them. I didn't decide to have them. They're your responsibility, not mine. Especially during the holidays when I'm supposed to be relaxing too. And that's when Sarah dropped her trump card. She stood up, her face flushed with anger. Well, maybe it's time someone taught you a lesson about gratitude. Let's see how you manage without Mom and Dad paying your college tuition. The room fell silent. I watched Mom and Dad exchange uncertain glances, clearly caught off guard. But instead of the panic I knew Sarah was expecting, I felt something else, a strange, unexpected sense of relief. Finally, all the cards were on the table. I stood up slowly. Actually, Sarah, I said, a calm smile playing at the corners of my mouth, Grandma's been paying my tuition from Grandpa's education fund. You know, the one he set up for all his granddaughters, the same fund that helped put you through nursing school and Emma through business school. And even if that wasn't the case, I have a partial scholarship. Plus, unlike some people, I'm not afraid of working to support myself. Without waiting for their stunned response, I turned and walked upstairs. Less than 10 minutes later, I was packed and ready to leave. I had become good at traveling light over the years. As I descended the stairs, Mom and Dad started calling after me, their voices a mix of anger and panic, but I was done talking. I walked out the front door, letting it close behind me on their protests and recriminations. The winter air bit at my cheeks as I headed to my car, but I barely felt it. The drive back to campus was oddly peaceful, each mile between me and home feeling like I was shedding a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying. I systematically blocked their numbers: Mom, Dad, Sarah, Emma. Each tap on my phone screen felt like breaking another link in a chain that had bound me for far too long. My dorm room welcomed me back with its blessed simplicity. No toys scattered across the floor, no sticky fingerprints on the windows, no constant background noise of children demanding attention. Just my books, my laptop, and my own thoughts. January passed in a blur of new classes and quiet weekends. February brought snow, and a blessed lack of family drama. I threw myself into my studies, made plans with friends, and, for the first time in years, felt like I was living my own life instead of merely existing in the margins of everyone else's. Then one cold Saturday morning in late February, I looked out my dorm window and saw them, Mom, Dad, and Emma standing in the parking lot, looking uncertain and out of place among the students rushing to and from classes. My first instinct was to pretend I wasn't home, to hide. But something in their body language made me pause. They looked different, smaller, somehow. Less like authority figures and more like people who had driven 4 hours to right a wrong. I met them in the lobby. Emma spoke first, her voice hesitant. Can we buy you coffee? We'd like to talk. The campus cafe was quiet that morning. We sat at a corner table, steam rising from our cups, the silence thick with unspoken words. Mom was the first to break it. We've been doing a lot of thinking, she began, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her cup. After you left, well, we had some long conversations. Very long conversations, Emma added, meeting my eyes directly. Ruby, we were wrong. All of us. We took advantage of you for years and called it family duty to make ourselves feel better about it. Dad cleared his throat. We didn't realize, or maybe we didn't want to realize, how unfair it was. You deserved your own holidays, your own time. You deserve to be treated like an adult, not the family babysitter. I took a long sip of my coffee, letting their words sink in. What about Sarah? I asked, breaking the silence. Emma sighed. Sarah. She's still processing, you know how she is. She has trouble admitting when she's wrong. But the rest of us, we want to do better. Things will be different now. Mom's voice was full of sincerity. No more pushing the kids on you. No more expecting you to give up your holidays. We want you to come home because you want to, not because you're needed for childcare. I studied their faces, Mom's eyes full of sincerity, Dad's expression full of regret, and Emma's posture open, almost vulnerable. Okay, I said, finally. I believe you. That evening, after they left, I unblocked their numbers. Within minutes, I had a text from Emma, "Miss you, little sis." For real this time. The following months brought a new normal. I visited home some weekends, and it was actually pleasant. When Emma brought her kids, she watched them herself or hired a babysitter. Mom stopped trying to orchestrate family bonding moments that always seemed to end with me in charge of a pack of children. Sarah and I still haven't spoken. Sometimes, I see her posts on social media, pictures of her boys growing up so fast. Part of me hopes that one day she'll realize what she did wrong, that she'll reach out first. Until then, I'm at peace with the distance.